She buried the man she loved, only to see him again, holding another woman's hand. What she said next, no one saw coming. Stay till the end, because this story will break your heart, and heal it, too. Rain fell softly over the marble stones of the Hartman family cemetery. Black umbrellas dotted the hill like shadows, and beneath the largest one stood Olivia Hartman, dressed in a long black coat that couldn't hide the tremor in her hands. She didn't cry, not anymore. The tears had dried days ago, somewhere between the police report and the endless phone calls from reporters asking for a statement. Her fiancé, Ethan Cole, the man she'd built her future around, was gone. A boating accident off the coast, they said. No survivors. Now, as the priest's voice echoed through the cold air, Olivia's world felt silent. Everything, the whispers, the cameras, the pitying glances, blurred into white noise. She didn't hear the words of comfort. She didn't feel the hands that touched her shoulder. All she saw was the coffin. Inside it, she imagined his smile, that calm, charming look that could quiet any storm. The man who told her once, "If I ever go before you, live, just remember, I'll never really leave." The thought made her chest tighten. As the coffin was lowered, the drizzle turned to steady rain. A flash of lightning illuminated the rows of mourners, the cameras behind the trees, and the cold faces of family members who'd come not for Ethan, but to make sure Olivia kept her composure. She didn't break. She couldn't, because Hartmans don't cry, not in public. Still, when the priest said, "Ashes to ashes," she whispered something no one else could hear. "Then why does it feel like I'm the one being buried?" The crowd began to disperse, but as Olivia turned away from the grave, a flicker of movement near the gates caught her eye. A tall figure, standing in the rain, watching her. That night, the mansion was too quiet. The sound of rain against the glass echoed like footsteps that never arrived. Olivia sat in the dim glow of the fireplace, still wearing her black dress, the folded funeral program resting on her lap. Ethan's face smiled up from the glossy paper, confident, kind, alive. It felt impossible that the world could go on without that smile in it. Her eyes drifted to the piano in the corner, his piano. He used to play it late at night, when he couldn't sleep, tapping gentle notes while she worked on her laptop, pretending not to watch him. She could still hear his voice that night they met, 3 years ago at a charity gala in Manhattan. She had just given a speech about rebuilding education programs for underprivileged kids. He'd walked up afterward, a glass of champagne in hand, and said, "You spoke like someone who's seen the world break, and still wants to fix it." No one had ever said something like that to her. Not a man, at least. From that moment, Ethan Cole became more than a business partner, more than the man who made her laugh during board meetings. He became her calm, her balance, the one person who looked at her and didn't see a billionaire, just a woman who wanted to be understood. Now, with him gone, the mansion felt colder than ever. The portraits on the walls looked like strangers. Her phone buzzed, messages, condolences, press requests, but she ignored them all. Instead, she whispered into the empty room, "You promised you'd never leave." And for a moment, she thought she heard it, a faint, distant echo. A man's voice, soft as the rain. "And I meant it." 2 weeks after the funeral, Olivia was still sleeping in the guest room. She couldn't step into the master suite. Not since the night she found his watch still ticking on the dresser, stopped at 11:47 p.m. The rain had finally stopped, but inside her, a storm was only just beginning. Every morning, the staff brought her coffee she never drank. The maids whispered about how thin she'd become. The tabloids still ran headlines like "The Billionaire Widow Who Stole America's Heart." She hated it. But what she hated more was how little anyone talked about Ethan anymore, like he was just another news cycle. That evening, as she sorted through boxes of his belongings for donation, she found his phone, still charged, hidden inside an old leather bag. The screen lit up. New message. From unknown number. "Don't come looking for me." Olivia froze. Her hands shook as she read it again. The timestamp was that morning. She checked the date twice. It wasn't an old message. She ran downstairs, calling for her security chief. "Where did this phone come from?" He looked confused. "We found it in the crash recovery. It's been in your study since the investigation closed." "But it's still active," she said, voice trembling. The man hesitated, glancing away. "Ma'am, I didn't want to say anything, but there's been reports." Someone's been using Mr. Cole's credit card in Connecticut. Gas stations, hotels, small towns. Olivia stared at him. Her pulse quickened. Impossible, she whispered. He's gone. The man said nothing. But as she looked out the window at the city lights below, one thought hit her so hard it made her dizzy. What if Ethan hadn't left her at all? What if he'd run from her? 3 days later, Olivia drove through downtown Hartford in the back of her black sedan. The city glowed with life. Busy streets, laughter, music, all of it felt distant, like it belonged to another world. She hadn't been seen in public since the funeral, but she'd quietly hired a private investigator to trace Ethan's credit card activity. That morning, she received the first lead. A transaction at a lakeside inn, 2 hours from the crash site. Paid in cash, but the receipt bore his name. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. Her driver pulled up near the old bridge just before sunset. The air smelled like rain and pine, and a thin fog crawled across the water. Olivia stepped out slowly, clutching Ethan's phone in her hand. She looked across the lake. Empty boats, rippling waves, quiet stillness. Then she saw him. A tall man in a dark coat stood by the water's edge, looking out at the horizon. His posture, his hair, even the way he tilted his head, it was him. Her heart stopped. "Ethan," she whispered. The man turned slightly, enough for her to see his face. Her breath caught. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't imagination. It was Ethan, alive. And beside him stood a woman, younger, elegant, her hand brushing his arm as she laughed softly. Olivia's body went numb. Her driver said something, but she didn't hear. The world blurred into static. The woman turned, and in that instant, Olivia felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. That face, those eyes. It was like looking in a mirror. Olivia didn't remember getting out of the car. One moment she was staring through the fog. The next her heels were splashing through puddles as she crossed the bridge. "Ethan," she screamed. The man froze. The woman beside him turned, startled. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared as Olivia approached, rain clinging to her black coat and tears mixing with the drizzle on her face. "You're alive," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're alive, and you let me bury you?" Ethan took a slow step forward, eyes full of guilt. "Olivia, please. Don't." Her voice cracked. "You let me stand over your coffin. You let me mourn you. And now you're here." She turned to the woman beside him. "With her?" The woman flinched, clutching Ethan's arm. She had Olivia's same hazel eyes, same small scar above the brow. A mirror image, but softer, younger. Olivia blinked. Disbelief etched across her face. "Who is she, Ethan? Tell me right now." Ethan's lips parted, but before he could speak, the woman said quietly, "My name is Grace." "Grace what?" Olivia snapped. "Grace Hartman." The words hit Olivia like a slap. Her last name. She shook her head. "That's not possible." Ethan's shoulders sagged. "It's true, Liv. She's your father's daughter. Your half-sister. I didn't know how to tell you. Your mother. She threatened to destroy her if I stayed. I had no choice." Olivia stared at him, trembling. "You faked your death to be with her?" Ethan's voice broke. "I had to protect her." Her face hardened, her voice turning cold. "Protect her? You destroyed me." The wind howled across the bridge, carrying her words into the night. By morning, the story was everywhere. Billionaire's fiancé found alive, seen with mystery woman. Olivia Hartman lied? Shocking twist in the Cole case. The internet exploded. Every news anchor, every gossip blog, every YouTube commentator had a theory. Some called it a scandal. Others called it karma. Olivia didn't leave her bedroom for 3 days. The curtains stayed shut, the phone unanswered. Her mother, Margaret Hartman, stormed through the house shouting about damage control and legal teams. "This family has a reputation, Olivia," she snapped. "You will not let one man destroy it." Olivia turned to her, eyes hollow. "He already did." Margaret's face softened only for a second. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Olivia interrupted. "You knew, didn't you? You knew about her. About Grace." Her mother's silence was answer enough. The sound of rain returned that night. Olivia sat on the marble floor of her dressing room, surrounded by old photographs, the engagement shoot, the vacation in Italy, the night he'd proposed. Every memory now felt poisoned. The phone on the counter buzzed again. A notification. Social media. A photo. Ethan and Grace, walking hand in hand through Central Park, smiling. Alive. Olivia's breath hitched. The world spun. For the first time since the funeral, she screamed, raw, guttural, a sound that shook the walls. When she finally stopped, she stared into the mirror across the room. Mascara streaked down her face, her eyes empty. You took my heart, she whispered to the reflection. Now I'll take back everything else. And in that single moment, grief turned into something colder, something dangerous. The mansion felt like a mausoleum now, silent, cold, and filled with ghosts. Every corner of it whispered Ethan's name. His coat still hung by the door. His cologne lingered faintly on the stairs. Olivia hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her body was heavy, her chest tight. She ignored the phone, the reporters outside, the messages from investors begging her to make a statement. For the first time in her life, she had no words left. That night, she walked barefoot into the garden. The moonlight cut through the clouds, silvering the pool like glass. She stood there for a long time, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back at her didn't look like Olivia Hartman anymore. She looked broken, forgotten, disposable. Tears rolled down her face. She whispered, "You said you'd never leave me." Then louder, "You promised." Her knees buckled. She sank to the ground, sobbing until her throat burned. She thought about what it would be like to stop the pain, to stop existing, to make the noise in her head finally go quiet. She stood up again, walked to the edge of the pool, and stepped into the freezing water fully clothed. The shock took her breath away. She sank slowly, eyes open, watching the moon blur above her. But just as her lungs began to ache, hands grabbed her shoulders and yanked her up. A voice screamed her name. "Olivia, don't." She coughed, gasping for air, and when she opened her eyes, she froze. Standing over her, drenched and crying, was Grace. Olivia sat trembling on the poolside tiles, coughing water, shivering under the cold night air. Grace knelt beside her, sobbing. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the water dripping from their clothes. Finally, Olivia rasped, "Why did you stop me, Grace? Why do you even care?" Grace's eyes glistened. "Because this isn't your fault, Olivia. You were never supposed to know the truth like this." Olivia frowned, weakly shaking her head. "What truth?" Grace hesitated, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Ethan didn't fake his death for me. He did it for them." Olivia blinked. "Them? Who?" "His parents," Grace said. "They couldn't stand the idea of him marrying you. They thought you'd expose their company's finances, the fraud, the offshore accounts, the charity front. They planned everything. The crash, the funeral, the fake death certificate. Ethan went along because he was terrified of losing everything." Olivia's chest tightened. Grace continued, her voice trembling. "I was just the assistant. They paid me to stay by his side and keep him quiet, to make it look like we were together. But I fell for him, and I hated myself for it." Olivia stared at her, speechless. Grace reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope. "He wanted you to have this. He wrote it before the crash." Olivia's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single note in Ethan's handwriting. "If you're reading this, live. I did it to protect you. I chose the lie over your death. Please forgive me." Olivia's sob echoed through the night. The next morning, the sky over Hartford was pale and cold. Olivia walked up the marble steps of the Montgomery estate, the very place where she'd once been treated as an outsider, a charity case, the woman from the wrong circles. But this time, she didn't knock. She pushed open the doors and stepped inside. Ethan's parents, Richard and Evelyn Montgomery, looked up from the dining table in shock. Evelyn stood first. "Olivia, dear, you shouldn't be here." Olivia's eyes were steady, her voice calm, too calm. "You're right. I shouldn't. But neither should your son be alive and hiding under your protection." Richard slammed his glass down. "You don't know what you're talking about." Olivia pulled out her phone and played an audio recording. Grace's confession, captured the night before. Ethan's voice followed. His apology, his fear, his acknowledgement of the fake crash. Evelyn's face went white. How did you?" "Because I stopped drowning," Olivia said. "And I started fighting." She laid Ethan's letter on the table. "You took everything from me, but you won't take my silence." Within hours, the world knew. Olivia released the recordings, the documents, the evidence of years of financial fraud and corruption. News stations exploded. Stock prices crashed. The Montgomery name became a scandal overnight. Richard was arrested within days. Evelyn vanished from public sight, and Ethan disappeared once more, but this time by choice. As the cameras flashed outside her office, Olivia looked into them, her voice firm and trembling only slightly. Sometimes, the dead aren't the ones buried. It's the truth that's been kept underground. But when you dig it up, it breathes again. It was almost spring when Olivia finally drove back to the lake, the same place where her world had ended and where it had begun again. The air was warmer now, the trees greener, the water calmer. She parked the car, stepped out, and walked slowly toward the pier, holding a small white envelope in her hand. Ethan was already there. He stood alone, wearing the same coat she'd seen him in that terrible night. Only now, his eyes looked older, emptier. He turned when he heard her footsteps. Neither spoke for a long moment. The silence between them was heavier than words could carry. Finally, Olivia said softly, "You could have trusted me. You could have told me the truth." Ethan's voice cracked. "I thought I was protecting you." "No," she whispered. "You were protecting your family's lies." He lowered his head. "I lost everything, Liv." "So did I," she said. "But the difference is, I found myself in the wreckage." She took a deep breath and handed him the envelope. "These are the divorce papers. Not because I hate you, but because I have to love myself more than the memory of us." Tears glistened in his eyes. She stepped closer, gently touched his face, and said the line that silenced the wind. "You taught me that love without truth is just a beautiful kind of death." Then she turned and walked away, slowly, gracefully, without looking back. The camera would linger on Ethan standing alone by the lake, the water reflecting his tears, and then fade to Olivia's car driving off into the sunrise. A woman reborn, not broken, but free.